My pleasure to introduce the speech of Siggy Gruber, former head of unit in DG Research, responsible for much more than €1 billion, which was spent for the benefit of the seas. And she will illustrate us what is the way ahead. Siggy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mario, and good morning to everyone in Rome and to all those who are listening to us. Thank you very much for inviting me, because it's always a pleasure really to continue to work with you. Now, we have heard so many fantastic interventions. It's always very difficult to add something new. So I was thinking more to focus now on the relation between science, science delivery, and policymaking, which was also part of my work. Can you hear me well, by the way? Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Sorry. Yeah. So we heard about challenges. Let me add some other challenges which might really impact our future, need maybe to be taken into account. First of all, the challenge in technology, the change in technology development, the shift towards the new renewable sources, artificial intelligence, which is triggering a societal transformation. Climate change, which constantly questions our assumptions. And we heard really the powerful speech by Onorevole Bianco. It confronts us constantly with new challenges, new geopolitical drivers which shift interest and power. And last but not least, we have to take into account the pandemic, which calls really for a deep reflection, not only in terms of scientific evidence, but more importantly, how is the scientific evidence communicated to citizens? And how is the use of such knowledge and evidence used for future crises? Because we need really to develop more and more effective and democratically legitimate science for policymaking. So knowledge production is changing, is challenged, and it has to cope with all these different factors. And as you are aware, knowledge production is very often still entrenched in thematic silos, carried out far from society and from those people who, in addition to policymakers, are in most need of more accurate scientific insights. So science and policy are often seen as two different worlds, even interfering with the academic freedom. But from that little we might have learned, it shows that if we do not bridge these two worlds, it prevents us from solving complex problems. So it's very encouraging to listen about all these previous interventions and also to learn that this is put at the center of our work. And Susan really mentioned the importance of co-creation and co-delivery. That's where the dialogue, the trust, the understanding of needs, the diversity of input and output will actually be guaranteed through co-creation, co-delivery, co-monitoring, including with the citizens, and this notion of leaving nobody behind in all our territories. And the systems approach that you mentioned also at the beginning, Mario, the connection with the ports, the air, the water, how important that is to bring it back to the territories, to link it and bring the solutions back to them. Susan also mentioned, Susan, thank you for really providing this last quote from Mandela. Education is the most powerful way. And so we do not talk about enough about training young people, reskilling adults. So education, really putting it in the context of lifelong learning, because how otherwise can we cope with all these really challenges I mentioned, other people mentioned, the green and the blue transitions which are needed for the future. So how can we really empower and equip young people so that they are becoming the future stewards for our ocean, for our seas, for the ports, and what all the value chains, connect credits for our future. So we also, when we look at the university, how can we change the curricula for the young PhD and master students and really train them as becoming scientists for policy? So that's what I really would like to put into the whole discussions. We have to produce solutions that have traction in the real world. And Anna Gerometta really mentioned and stressed that. We have to take all relevant perspectives, including the values and perceptions, into account. Because in a digital age, and now we see it with all these virtual ongoing discussions, people will no longer tolerate being excluded from the debate. So it is relevant for all sectors, but in particular for the maritime sector, which is so complex and split in so many different segments. So the wake-up call issued by LIFE4MEDECA for the Mediterranean is a great example to inform discussion and support decision-making by complementing the ongoing efforts to establishment of an emission control area in the Mediterranean, and really to learn from the different really successful examples which are going on. And I hope that this will continue really to be pursued with the MEDECA Blue Passports. Why not? Connecting it to what is going on in the series of excellence, different activities which are funded by the regional and structural funds. Let me now, it is not, of course, when we talk about research and innovation, I cannot not talk very briefly about Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe is the biggest ever research and innovation investment program, which has already kicked off. The calls are open. It will really boost our recovery after the COVID crisis, and strongly, hopefully, reinforce all the cooperative and the cooperation elements. It is open for all countries in the Mediterranean, because this is the specific context of today's discussion and talks. But let me just mention that Horizon Europe counts with 3 very important for this whole discussion, mutually interacting instruments. The main work programs where you find all the different calls, the new Horizon Europe partnerships, which are really pooling different money, different activities going on at the level of the countries, and they are topped up with money from Horizon Europe. And last but not least, the Horizon Europe missions. After me will provide much more insights into the missions. But there's, in the work program of Horizon Europe, there's a cluster which is specifically included, really. There's an area of intervention on seas, ocean, and inland waters. So, and there is much more. There are other clusters, cluster 5, and not to forget all the bottom-up activities for the European Innovations Council, the European Research Council, the infrastructures dedicated part, the Marie Sklodowska Korea actions, and you name it. But there will be, hopefully, starting in 2023, the strategic partnership on a climate neutral, productive and sustainable blue economy. And also this will have to marry and go really very closely together with the co-programmed partnership on zero emission waterborne transports. So I mentioned very briefly the mission. I cannot really now go into the nitty-gritty, but this mission, restoring our ocean and waters by 2030, that's going to be the big novelty. That's going to become hopefully the catalyst which will drive research and innovation and investment activities. And I invite really everyone to join up. And I hope, Mario, that with your SDG4Med, with your foundation, with your work, you can also become a driving force really in ensuring the connectivity, which is so much needed because there's so many different parallel activities going on. And let me conclude, it's really meetings like that where there is an expression of willingness, of constant engagement, your cooperation, and the willingness to continue to work to enhance the much needed knowledge, to upscale it, to co-create it with coastal communities, to test it, to pilot it, and then to bring the solutions into the market. That's really what's going to count. Let's ask ourselves, how can our ocean and seas save us? We normally ask it the other way around. So we know that we are heavily damaging. So let's stop talking about it and let's take this collective action. Let's take on our individual and collective responsibilities and for the harm that we do to our ocean and sea. What we need to do is to cure it, and the ocean and sea will cure us. It's the air that counts, the health, our healthy air, our healthy waters. Thank you very much, and I wish you good continuation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sigi. As always, you are very emotional, and you are bringing emotion to our heart.